Hey you guys, welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. So today we're actually going to be outside for once. We're going to be out in the garden. It's been a little while. So I have a few projects that I need to get done here in my very early September garden, and I thought I'd bring you guys along for that. I did want to show you some of the things that I started recently. Just give you a little update. A few weeks ago, I came out here and sowed some pole beans. I'm pushing it a little bit with these, but I wanted to see if I could get some green beans. These are I believe they're a blue lake bush bean. So they're growing. You can see they're ready. I need to start trying to train them up to this trellis. And hopefully before our frost comes, I'll be able to get some green beans out of these. If you've watched other videos, you may have seen where I mentioned in a video that I planted some more cucumber seeds, and I'll show you why. So my cucumber plants that lasted so long this summer, they are sad and shriveling up and just really sick and diseased. So I planted more cucumber seeds. I'm trying to remember how many I actually planted out here. I know I overplanted because I really struggle with cucumbers in the fall, trying to get them germinated. I'd originally planned to try and start some inside this summer to put out for a fall harvest and just didn't get around to it. But I put all these seeds out in the ground, and I'm going to show you. It's kind of hilarious. Had one cucumber germinate, that sad little thing. And it's late enough, I don't know if it'll actually give me anything, but I put so many seeds all along here and only got one cucumber. Actually, you know what? I don't think I planted that, but that is definitely a cucumber. Somebody must have moved some seeds. I'll take it. Maybe it'll give me some fruit. Another thing I wanted to show you all is that I think maybe my tomatoes did just need some extra food. I think I'm going to have to do a soil test in this off season, but I came through and weeded, if you saw that video, and then I added more fertilizer to each of my tomato plants. And they are finally, now that we're into September, putting on fruit. So I still have almost 2 months until we usually get a frost, and there are so many flowers on my tomato plants that I think there's a good chance I'm still going to get a tomato harvest. So one of the things that I'm trying to get done today, and honestly, it might just be too late, but it's worth a shot. All I'm risking really is a few seeds, is that I want to try and plant some summer squash. We did not have a good summer squash year. Last year I got a ton, but this year the squash bugs and the vine borers, they found my zucchini and yellow squash very early. I think I got 2 zucchini before the plants succumbed to the vine borers. And so, again, I might be pushing it, but I was at Home Depot the other day and they had this squash. It's called a Dixie hybrid, so it's not an heirloom, but you probably can't see it from here. It's a 41 day to harvest yellow summer squash. So I should have enough time, if our frost doesn't come early, that we might be able to get some squash. And I think that this is worth it. I also got a gray zucchini, and it's 48 days to harvest. So also, some people, once it frosts where they live, that's kind of it. It gets cold, it stays cold, but down here in the South, we can get our first frost and then not have another frost for another few weeks. So if our first frost comes and it's a mild frost, there's a good chance that I could just throw a frost blanket over these and them be fine. So what's that saying? No risk, no reward. We're gonna risk it, and we're gonna try and get some summer squash. So I'm gonna put 2 seeds in each one of these holes. I'm gonna plant 3 of each, 3 holes with zucchini and 3 holes with yellow squash. I'm just amending my growing holes. I'm digging them out a bit and adding some compost and some Trifecta Plus. The Trifecta Plus is my favorite fertilizer. I get it from MI Gardener, and it just has been a game changer in my garden when I have areas that are lacking in some form of nutrients. So I got my holes all amended and my seeds put in. So now we're just going to water them in really good. Our temperatures are still high enough that I'm probably going to need to do this about twice a day just to give them a chance to actually stay moist enough to germinate. One garden task down. I'm feeling good about today. While we're over here, I wanted to show you guys my tomatillo plants. I've mentioned in previous garden videos that I just haven't really gotten the tomatillos off of these plants. And if you look at them, you'd think they're loaded if you just looked at them kind of from a distance. There's tons of husks. They're covered in tomatillos, but let me see if I can find one. No, that one doesn't have a tomatillo in it. This is a really good example. I have these husks, but the tomatillo looks like this and was never given the chance to fully grow. I'm gonna make sure we get in here close enough you guys can actually see. Can you see just straight through that tomatillo? Oh, maybe I need a hand behind it to help it not be blurry. I'm sorry if this is a little blurry, but this has been the primary issue with my tomatillos all year. I have at least 2 different things that have been going on. Lots of armyworms this year, and I have sprayed my garden with BT multiple times, but also the leaf-footed bugs are damaging them as well. They're going through the husk into the tomatillo, and the tomatillos are just rotting before they can even get big enough. And I pick off the leaf-footed bugs when I see them. I squish them, put them in the soapy water, do all the stuff you're supposed to do. I did finally give in and buy an organic pesticide from Captain Jack's to try to see if maybe we could salvage something of a tomatillo harvest. But it's been a bummer of a year, to be perfectly frank. I have 10 tomatillo plants here, and I've made 2.5, 3 pints of salsa just because this is what I'm dealing with. So some years you win, some years you lose. This has not been a good tomatillo year. The tomatillos are a little bit of a bummer. So I thought I'd show you guys something that is doing well in the garden. My sweet pepper plants are just looking amazing. I don't know if you guys know this, if you are new gardeners or if you're just people who sort of enjoy watching gardening content but don't actually garden, but peppers tend to come on like in flushes. So where I live, I would say I get probably about 3 flushes, maybe 4, depending on when frost comes and how cool our spring was. But my plants are covered in new tiny baby peppers, tons of new flowers. So let's take a look. You see all of these new flowers. Look at this tiny little pepper here. And these plants are just covered. So many, oh, so many flowers and baby peppers. And with frost still being about 2 months away, there is plenty of time for these to give me a great harvest. I just spotted something that I'm pretty excited about, even though it's a little bit silly. So I'm going to take you guys over and show you what I'm talking. If you've been around for a while and been watching my videos, you might remember, I think it was probably about the end of June. I planted some very, very sad cherry tomato plants in holes where my squash plants had been killed by vine borers. And they didn't look great at the time. They were about this big. They just hadn't thrived in the potting soil that I started my seeds in. There's a tomato on one of them. It's the very first tomato. We're all the way to September, but it's a variety that I don't have any other plants of. So very exciting. So right here, my first and maybe only sunrise bumblebee. It's still green, but we'll see what we get. Since we're out here and there's ripe sun golds, you gotta have some garden candy, right? So good. If you've never grown a sun gold, they are just kind of like magical little cherry tomato candy bombs in the garden. So on to my next big garden project today. I am maybe a little ashamed to admit this. I have this beautiful light blue green stalk that I have not planted at all this year. I had plans for it, and then we just kept needing to go out of town for extended periods of time this year. And I was worried that it was going to dry out because it was so hot and I didn't have a way to have it water while I was gone. And so I just never got around to planting it. But got old soil in it from last year that's been allowed to dry out. I shouldn't have let it do that, but I did. And so my big plan today for this is I am actually going to amend this soil, do what I can to get it all hydrated again, including adding perlite. And we're going to add some worm castings to amend it and some compost to top it off. And then I am going to try and hopeful, but again, this is sort of like those squash plants that I just planted back there. It's kind of a gamble. I'm going to try and plant some bush beans. I got Blue Lake bush beans because they are a 52-day variety. And so theoretically, I could maybe get green beans. And I also, over here, I have a back porch with windows on it. And so I might be able to pull it into the back porch if we get an early frost, or it looks like we're maybe just going to have a day that's cold. So we're going to try for some green beans. So I need to get amending. So the first thing I want to do, I think I've actually never done this before, but I figured everybody's got a first time, right? So let's figure it out together. I am going to loosen up the soil that's in here, and then I'm going to add some of the perlite and worm castings and try and mix it in here pretty good. And then we're going to top dress it with the compost. Ooh. If you're unfamiliar with perlite, it kind of looks like tiny little styrofoam balls, but it retains water and it releases water. And so it's used a lot in things like potting soil because it helps keep your plants good and hydrated. I'm thinking about this. I should probably put the worm castings in at the same time. So I only have to mix it up once. Put my gloves back on. Just add some of these worm castings. And I have a 7-tier leaf green stock. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Yes, 7 tiers. So this, if it works, if they give me beans, this should be a lot of green beans because you can plant, according to the green stock website, 3 green beans in each planting container, or each container is not the right word, the little cavities in each tier, and each tier has 6 cavities. So 7 tiers with 6 cavities and 3 green beans apiece, that's a lot of green beans. Once I get a tier amended, I am gonna water it and try and get the soil more hydrated. I have watered these a few times. I took it apart and just really doused it in water, but I'm pretty sure because I let it sit so long that my soil has gotten hydrophobic. The mixing in the worm castings, compost, and that perlite should help. So just do our best, right? And grab my compost to top it off. Because if you are not familiar with green stocks, you actually fill them all the way to the very tippy top of the container. Oh my goodness. I bought the same compost I always buy, but it's just beautiful this year. I don't know if it's the time of year or what, but I'm very happy. Over the last few years, the compost has been a lot more woody, not quite as nice, but this is beautiful, rich, broken down compost. I'm really happy with it. If you normally buy things like your compost at a place like, I'm thinking like one of the big box stores, like, well, Walmart, but also like Home Depot or Lowe's. If you have a Rural King anywhere near you, I find that it is one of the most economical places to buy bags of compost. And I just have a minivan, so I can load lots of bags of compost into the back, lay a tarp down and fill it up. But I can't just go get big scoops somewhere like if I had a pickup truck. So being able to find bags for a good price is a big deal. All right. 1 tier done. 6 more to go. I got all of my tiers amended, topped with compost. So now I've got my spinner base. I have a spinner base with wheels. I've got my wheels I made sure they're in the locked position so that I can start stacking my tiers. Oh. Make sure it's on here nice and in a position it's supposed to be in. If you've never seen one of these, or you have one and you tend to forget, don't forget to put the watering tier in. I've forgotten this before, and then you have to take it apart and add them in. But it just goes here in the middle. You push it in good. It's part of the built-in watering system. And then just get these locked in. This can be a little bit of a task, getting it lined up perfectly. I find the higher I go, the easier it gets, but that's on good. Having them filled definitely helps with putting it together because that weight helps them lock in place. Watering tier, and I'm just gonna keep stacking all 7 layers of this. So if you've never seen one of these before, the final layer is actually for water. So when you water your green stalk, you use the measuring levels in here to add water. And it goes down, and there are holes in each of those little discs that the water runs through. I will tell you, your green stalks are supposed to be on a level surface. And I don't really have one of those. My patio is a little bit slanted. And so sometimes I just have to water the individual cells. That is not an issue with the green stalk. That is my growing environment. Ugh. My sprayer bit the dust today, guys. Look at it. Oh, let's not get the camera to flat. So I'm gonna have to replace this, but it'll work for today. Okay, so I am gonna get my beans in here. I am actually going to plant this whole thing with beans. I want to really maximize how much we get because I'm pushing it here at the end of the season. I figure the more beans, the better. So I did the math. I believe that comes out to about 127 beans are going to go into this planter. So I am just going to work my way around each tier and put the beans in. My fingers are super dirty, by the way, after sticking them in that soil. So I think what I'm going to do is go around and lay beans on top and then come back and push them in. I've just got my beans all spread throughout the container, and I'm just going through and poking them all in. I go about a knuckle deep with these bean seeds. I do actually need to run to the store and get another seed pack because I was short about 1.5 tiers of beans. So I need to go grab one more seed pack, but then we'll be just waiting on our beans to germinate. I'll definitely be out here watering them every day, just like the squash plants in the back. If you have a green stalk, what is your favorite thing to grow in it? Last year, I grew greens in the fall. I grew like kale and spinach and lettuce. But the nature of fall where I live, this was not a fault of the green stalk. My stuff bolted pretty quickly because we were just bouncing between 60-ish degree days and 80, 85-ish degree days. And it confused my lettuce plants. So I need to figure out how to get greens going in the winter. I do really love to have them, but the fall, when it gets so warm in the fall, it's hard. So if you have any tips for me, please share them. I do quite well with the lettuces and cool weather things in the spring, but the fall planting gets me every year. All of our beans are planted. I do still need to go get another seed pack and finish off that bottom tier and second to bottom tier. But beans, hopefully here in the next couple months before the frost, we're going to actually get some green beans. out of this green stock, I will be thrilled if we can do that. So we've got the squash planted in the back and the green beans here. And like I said, it's sort of like Russian roulette a little bit. We're just taking a chance, but I'm hopeful, and I'll bring you guys along and we'll see what we actually manage to get. So thank you for hanging out today with me in the garden. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.